Hello, my friends. Here is a video about how to know whether or not you're in dose. When I made that last video that I posted about how, in order for that stress switch to turn off enough to really expect to see a significant shift in symptoms, we need to be in dose most of the day. I said 75%, which I think is pretty fair for at least 3 to 6 months before we should really expect to see a big shift in symptoms. This varies from person to person. And again, those who have like great success with creating a lot of dose with visualization at first might see shifts sooner. But I got the question of, well, how do I know I'm in dose? Does that mean I have to be happy 75% of the day? No, or calm. Absolutely not. That is not what it means. It is not, there's still a lot of activation, even when we're generating dose. Both can coexist. So here's some signs to know that you are creating dose. And I want to emphasize again, I said a little bit on a lot of these because you can be creating and generating dose while still largely in stress chemistry. And that's what I mean is that we're generating some, decent or significant amount of dose, but there's still going to be a baseline of stress. And there's a lot of times still going to be symptoms, still going to be racing thoughts or, having those trauma loops running in the background. So with that context, the first one, feeling a flow of positive energy anywhere in your body, no matter how small it might be. So that might be, taking a moment to practice gratitude, to list gratitudes, or to think of someone or something that you love. And in that moment that you think of it, you feel that warmth in your heart. You feel a little bit of light here. Maybe you feel it in your belly too, or having, maybe you're visualizing or doing a meditation and you notice a softening in your belly or your pelvic floor or your hips. There's a softening in the body or a bit of a warmth there. That's a sign that you're generating dose. And again, a lot of times there's going to be one location and some amount of that. It might not last a super long time. It's not going to be your whole body, but it's just that little bit of good feeling means that you are generating dose. Your tummy gurgling, that's a great sign of being in parasympathetic, is when we hit that point where we notice digestion starting to really pick up. So that can happen a lot during visualization or again, any other time that you're really getting deep into parasympathetic. Feeling yawning, a big one, that's classic. Getting sleepy tears is another good one. And having increased saliva production, that's a really powerful sign of being in dose. I know that seems strange, but it's very distinct and very accurate. A slightly more regulated temperature. So if you're usually running really hot, if you're in fight or flight, most likely you feel hot and inflamed a lot of the time, overheated in an unpleasant way. So feeling a little bit cooler or a little bit, even a little bit, or, a little bit more normal in that sense. I know for me, when I was in this, there were times where I would get enough dose that it felt like someone turned the heat off inside my nervous system. And it was like, oh, like someone just kind of poured air conditioning through my nervous system. It's so nice. Sometimes it's less obvious than that, but same thing the other way, feeling a little bit warmer or more regulated if you're usually cold or in freeze. Feeling a bit warmer, a bit more easy to regulate your temperature. You don't need as many layers. And having warm hands and feet, like pleasantly warm or pleasantly cool, like pleasant temperature, good blood flow through your extremities. Because when we're in survival, all of the blood flow is going to stay by your vital organs to protect them. So your hands and feet are like the first things the brain's like, yep, we don't need those to survive. We're not sending blood flow there. So that's a great sign that you're getting into a more relaxed state. Noticing the texture of clothing, the air, scents, like smells, or any other sensory input feeling a little bit more neutral or even to positive. Like if you hit a point where you actually notice the sweater on your skin, or you smell something, you're like, wow, that actually smells good. Or you notice that you smell like the changing seasons or something like that. You notice you can smell, somebody cooking in your complex or whatever. Noticing scents like that are positive, or things shifting where, visuals, like lights a little bit less abrasive, things like that. Even if it's more towards neutral versus positive, if it's less negative, you're generating dose. Otherwise, your sensory input, your sensory perception wouldn't be changing. Your vision clearing, even if it's a little bit and even if it's temporary. That was my number one way of knowing I got into dose when I was in the thick of things, was that I could see again. I didn't really think of myself as having visual its or symptoms, but when I was really deep in my mental illness, I would only notice when I came out. I wouldn't notice when I was in. It was like, oh my God, I'm in the room and I can actually see like the furniture and the wall. It was like, whoa, I can see, I'm here. I'm in the room for even, sometimes it would be like a split second, or sometimes it would be a few minutes, or sometimes it would last the rest of the day. It usually took me at least half the day or more to get to that point each day, but vision clearing is a great sign. Your eyes are literally directly connected to your brain. So having positive visual changes and more clarity of vision is a great sign that your brain function is better, which means you're generating dose. This is a huge one. If you're engaging your attention with something positive, especially you're emotionally engaging your attention, meaning your mind and your emotions are both attuning to something you're focusing on, whether that's a visual, a sound, a somatic practice that you're doing, your breath, a ray of light, doesn't matter what it is. When you're really giving all your attention to something, you are generating dose and you're stabilizing your brain and nervous system. Like the lock that emotional and mental focus together creates is really stabilizing. And even if you don't feel a lot of dose in that moment, it might feel kind of like nothing or very neutral. You're in a sense, you're literally paving a road in your brain to be able to then feel genuinely positive emotion when you do that. So it might feel very flat, let's say, or kind of neutral or boring or dry at first. It might not really feel good or a lot like really emotional, but you're still generating dose when you do things, and you're also paving the way for like much bigger dosey kind of feelings to come along. That's huge, because that was one of the biggest things. Like, you know, and there still might be a lot of low noise or activation in the background, a lot of symptoms, but when you have that lock focus, like, you are making progress. That's, you know, there's no doubt about it. And feeling a little bit calmer, and that's like 5 to 10%. Even if the other 90-95% of you is still not calm, your body's not calm, there might be a lot of your mind still kind of like, ah! But if you're kind of focusing and you're generating dose, you're singing, you're humming, you're whatever you're doing, and you notice you feel a little bit calm, a little bit of like a trickle of calmness, there's a little bit of calmness there with all the not calm, that is you creating dose. And that's really the goal. You're going to be in this kind of dual state if you're doing it right a lot of the time. Again, feeling more neutral, kind of bored, or even, you know, if you've had really heightened emotions, feeling numb, can actually be a good sign that you're coming out of a really heightened state. If you're usually numb, feeling emotions is a good sign that you're coming into dose. But again, dry calm, I talk a lot about juicy calm, but dry calm is still dose, like just so total boring, like sidewalk, just nothing. That's still dose. Maintaining access to your curious observer and your prefrontal cortex, even when you're activated, is a good sign that you are generating dose, because without dose, we can't keep that. And again, part of this is like progress. What are we trying to be in that 75% of the day? Even when you're activated, being able to have, you know, maybe 2 to 10% of your awareness observing the experience, and you see the stories, you see the fear, you see the loops happening, you still feel the symptoms, but there's a part of you that's like, but I know what this is. This is my limbic system. Like, I'm not falling for the stories. I know that they're stories. I'm watching them. I'm observing them. And I know I need dose. So I'm going to, you know, do a practice or whatever you need to do. And again, during the practice, you might still be kind of struggling to maintain that curious observer and keep your attention engaged. But that's an effective practice. That's you actively generating dose. Super common one, especially in DNRS, is the warm fuzzies. Definite, like, very clear sign that you're in dose is having warm fuzzies, but you're not going to have warm fuzzies all day, every day. Like, that's not reasonable. There would be something wrong if someone was in like warm fuzzies the whole day. So that one's like more when you're really getting into joy or happiness or calm. Noticing any feeling of release emotionally or physically, you know, the psychological sigh, noticing that, oh, all of a sudden my pelvic floor just like relaxed and I'm not like holding on for dear life as if I'm trying not to pee my pants all the time. Like noticing like your shoulders drop a little bit, or your hands unclench a little bit, or your feet unclench a little bit, or your kneecaps unclench a little bit. It's like, okay, my body's starting to feel like it doesn't need to be bracing for dear life all the time. It's a really good sign. And then the last one that's most obvious, feeling any positive emotion. Feeling gratitude, feeling awe, feeling fascination, joy, happiness, wonder, you know, engagement, being really engaged with something that's positive. It's not something that's really activating, but any positive emotion at all, feeling calm. If you're feeling a positive emotion, you're in dose to some degree. Again, even if it feels blunted or muted, as it often will when we're in recovery, a lot of times there's still a layer of freeze kind of over our ability to feel. So as we thaw out and we're generating dose, our emotions can feel like they're in another room, or they're like kind of on the other side of like a glass wall, or wrapped in plastic, or like a lot of things can feel blunted. So, but it's still, if emotion's there and you can sense that it's there, no matter how distant it may seem, you are still generating dose. So success is closer than you think. Love you guys.